these are the most dangerous apparent investments. So when you play the banks at their own game, which is a really clever business model, you get rich. Biggest financial risk is...
Let's talk the biggest money mistakes people make.
Not buying silver. That's a big money mistake. Having money in fiat currency going down in value over time and not having your value stored in real money. But this is real. This is real. And actually, it's really underpriced compared to gold. If you track gold and silver price, up until 2005, they went like that. Silver here, gold here. And then from 2005, gold went like that, and silver has not tracked up relative to it. So whilst I'm not giving financial advice, this is probably really undervalued. I've got an expert who guides me on my buying of precious metals, and he thinks this is really undervalued. Actually, for a bit of fun, in the comments, if you're watching on video, of course, if you can guess exactly, I'll tell you what, I'll do the closest because that feels more fair. Exactly how much silver is here at the time that I bought it. And there's, I won't tell you how much, but there's bars, kilo bars, and 2-ounce Queen's Bees coins. 5 of you get it the closest. I'll give some of these silver coins away.
So tactically then, how do you get into silver? Do you have to go to a dealer? Can you buy it online?
You can buy it on the Royal Mint.
Yeah.
You can go to the Royal Mint website, which is backed by the government, and you can buy silver bars and silver coins. You can buy gold bars and gold coins. There are other places and other ways to buy it. If you buy it in a company, you can claim the VAT back. But yeah, it's really easy to buy. This is legal tender. I mean, you're not going to go to Starbucks. I'll have all your coffee, but...
One Stanley Cup.
Yeah, one Stanley Cup. Don't get me started on Stanley Cups.
Go on, biggest financial mistakes.
Well, yeah. Kids spending 55 quid of their hard-earned saved money or getting their parents to pay 55 quid for Stanley Cups. I don't know if you saw my LinkedIn post. It got 1 million views plus, ranting about 55 quid for a Stanley Cup. Here's the thing. You could get one of these investments for nearly the same as a beaker that holds water. You could buy a beaker that holds water for £1 or $1. Why do you need to spend £55 on a Stanley Cup?
What is it about Stanley? What have they done right that they're able to charge?
Well, it's
that?
obvious. They've infiltrated into the TikTok and YouTube youth culture and clearly got the young kids going mad about these Stanley Cups, doing them in kids' colours and things like that. I mean, from a marketing standpoint, it's genius. It's just such a shame that we aren't teaching our kids to invest £55. Instead, they're buying £55 water bottles. It's just, there's a part of that really saddens me. Kids spending 50 quid on a cup that probably don't have 50 quid to their name in savings. Although savings is another thing that's a big myth.
What's the myth around savings?
That leaving your money in the bank is not saving it. It's degrading it.
Just burning a bit each year because of inflation.
Yeah. And the risk attached to will you get it back when you want it? I mean, there's riots going on in the world. If 11% of the population want their money back at the same time, that is an insolvency event whereby the banks don't have it in deposit. They wouldn't be able to give it back. Just 11%. You're led to believe that your money is safe and, the money is insured, but how do you know? How do you know? So, in some ways, it's a great scam that your £100 or dollars today, if you save it for long enough, is relatively worth 50, and then 30, and then 20. It's called savings. To save something, like if you save a child, you save its life. Saving is supposed to be virtuous. It's assumed that when you save something, you retain its value. No, if you leave money in cash or you leave money in the bank, that is not saving it, that is eroding it. So I don't use the word savings, I use the word storing. This is a better savings account than the banks because it beats inflation. And this is a better store of money.
So going back to silver, how is somebody then selling it if they need to? eBay?
eBay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't sell it. I just hold it forever.
What if you have an accident?
I mean, you can go to gold and silver dealers or brokers. I use the Pure Gold Company, and I buy and sell gold through them to them. They're not the only one, and they're not paying me to say this. I've just used them, and they're really good. The thing with silver and gold is it has a very stable market value. Like whatever this is worth today, you'll get, and it'll be pretty much a set amount, and you'll get given that. If you try and sell real estate, there is no set value, and if you try and sell it, you might have to sell it 10 or 20% less. So it's very stable market, very liquid. Yeah.
What's the biggest loss you've personally suffered financially? Was there one big investment mistake that went wrong?
This is probably going to sound a bit anti-American, but I haven't failed 932 times. I haven't gotten bust 58 times. Because I saw this post by Alex Hormozy on LinkedIn. It's like, failed my first business, failed my second business, failed my third business, failed my ninth business, and now I'm a legend winner. And I kind of thought, well, actually, I probably wouldn't invest in you, mate, because you failed 9 businesses. So maybe you just got lucky. And what about all the creditors and the companies that got liquidated and all those failures? I think it's really glorified in America, especially, about failing and going bust. I think everyone should have a second chance as long as they haven't done anything illegal. I think everyone should have a third chance. I think the limited company wrapper, where you protect the individual's assets via a company structure so that they can take a risk and set up a business and employ people and not lose their home, I think that's a great structure. But I haven't really lost much money. I mean, I've bought an asset and sold it 10, 15% below its... I bought a police station and converted it into 23 flats. I sold the 23 flats. We made gross 7 figures in the early millions. Then I had to take the taxes off, split it with my business partner, then split it again with my wife. And, I was left with, for many a life-changing amount of money, but this was 10 years ago. That money's well and truly gone now. And those 23 flats have doubled in value since. I really regret selling those. So most of my financial mistakes are selling assets too early. So that's why now my strategy for all investing, watches, cars, although I did sell that 1989 Porsche 911 Turbo, but there's a reason for that if you want to know.
Yeah.
But cars, watches, real estate, businesses maybe, precious metals, anything I own, buy, hold, die.
What's the biggest money scam that's completely legal?
Inflation. The biggest money scam that's completely legal is that the government can print money on demand with no value backed or value created. And the reason it's a scam is not because they can just make money out of thin air. Because if they could make money out of thin air and it had value and it strengthened the value of your money, that would be a public service. But every time they print money for wars, because if they came to you and said, hey, we want to put our taxes up 10%, Kane, because we'd like to go to war with America, yeah? You're going to opt out of that.
Yep.
You're going to riot over that. So they don't ask you. They just print money. Let's say they came to you and said, we want to lock you down for 3 months. It's going to cost us $1 trillion. Can we just up your taxes 10%? You're going to say, fuck off. So they print 1 trillion. But the big scam is when they print the money for themselves to fund wars and lockdowns, your money goes down in value and it becomes a theft of your money. And that is the biggest legalized money scam. And the reason it's such a huge money scam is because no one fucking knows it's going on. And people say, oh, inflation is just the natural. Like they talk about inflation as a natural occurrence. No, it's not. It's a government and central bank created occurrence. It doesn't have to happen. Like if they don't print money and they find another way to exchange value, because if you go back, sardines and cigarettes and stones and salt and silver and gold were all forms of money. So you can't tell me that there's no other better invention of money than paper. I mean, it's really fucking clever invention, but it's not a public service. It's a government and central bank service. The biggest scams are hidden in plain sight. They're the biggest scams.
The first one that comes to my mind after you saying that is university, right? So you teach entrepreneurs how to start, scale a business, make more money. And people will pay you for the privilege as they should. Not me. I thought you would pay me for a few years first. But with university, it's like, oh, get a high interest loan. I looked at mine. I've been out of uni 4 or 5 years. It's higher than when I left. And you learn something you're probably never going to use taught by somebody who's never done it themselves. And not only is it in plain sight, it's encouraged from early on in school.
Most working or middle class families are indoctrinated with the desire that success for their children is sending them to college. So you are being programmed from age 3 by your parents who were programmed that for you to be a successful man when you grow up, you need to go to college, you need to go to university, you need to get a good job and not shame the family. But like you said, you are propagandized into going to college and university for 3 to 7 years. Do you know the highest fees that an individual student has paid is $250,000? There is a student who has paid $250,000 in school fees, which obviously he's not paid cash, has had to get debt on that. Like you said, the student loans, the fees, probably getting into debt in the living expenses and the accommodation. So you're in college 3 to 7 years, you're in 6 figures of debt, which is thousands of pounds of interest. And now you might be able to get a job starting at the bottom of the ladder for maybe 30 grand. And if you want to have to eat and to heat and to live, you're probably 500 to $1,000 or more down. So you've already got all the debt that you're paying thousands on. Then you've got to get credit cards to live. Then you've got to get a mortgage to live. And all of a sudden you've got student debt, credit card, mortgage. And then they're like, oh, you want a car? Get a loan. Or you want a conservatory? Get a loan. All of a sudden you've got 5 loans. You're 25. You're earning 30, 35 grand a year. There are people now in the UK who are earning 50 grand a year who can't afford a house. That's mad. And then now they're giving 30-year mortgages, which means, oh, you're 25, 30. You're in masses of debt. You've got 5 different loans to us. You're paying thousands of pounds. And now we're going to keep you in debt until beyond retirement age. And then statistically, you die a few years after retirement. I mean, one of the best tips to extend your life is to never retire, as long as you're doing something that you love. And then when you die, they take 40% off you in inheritance tax. And that's the system. And people call courses and self-education a scam. I mean, and I shouldn't be pissed off, because my mission is to help as many people on this planet get better financial knowledge. And if the system wasn't the system, I wouldn't have a job. But people can join Rob.team for what? 2 cups of coffee a month, less than 20 pence a day. And they can learn how to beat the system at its own game. Because one thing I want to say about that system is actually objectively very clever. It's subjectively and ethically and morally reprehensible to me, but it's objectively very clever. This thing called a human, which replicates itself and I can make a product. So the banks have 4-5 billion customers. I don't know how many people don't have a bank account. Let's call it 2 million. Billion. Trillion. What's the population? 7 billion?
Between 7 and 8.
Okay. So let's say 3 billion don't have a bank account. 5 billion do. Well, the banks have got 5 billion products that they can sell to, i.e. you. Because if you're not making money from the banks, you are the product of the banks. I make money from the banks. Here's something fun. If you borrow £1 million from the bank, you have the problem. If you borrow £100 million from the bank, they have the problem. Oh, Keynes, sir. Yes, sir. What do you want, sir? Because they don't want to lose the fucking 100 million that you've borrowed off them. So when you play the banks at their own game, which is a really clever business model, you get rich because they got rich. It works. So I've transcended the moral and ethical judgment of it because I just see it as a business model. What pisses me off, though, is the lack of transparency of it. So I'm telling people how the financial system works in layman's terms that anyone can understand. And then people are like, fuck, that's a scam. No, it's a clever business model and you can learn it and put good ethics and morals on it, i.e. have a good product and service that's valuable and, you know, don't have misguiding propaganda and make out that you're doing something that you're not. But I figured this out 17, 18 years ago. So inflation makes me rich. Inflation makes most people poor. Inflation makes the bank rich. Whatever makes the bank rich, I want to figure out and I want to do the same because the banks have been doing it for thousands of years and they're fucking good at it. Inflation makes the bank rich. All right, I've got to work out how inflation can make me rich. So I just do what the banks do.
How does inflation make you rich?
Because any time the banks print money and create inflation, asset prices go up and debt values go down. And I have assets and debt. Let me try and explain this in layman's terms. When money is printed, there is more money in the economy. So relatively, what was already in the economy goes down in value because there is more supply. Supply and demand is more demand, higher price, more supply, lower price. So more money in the system, lower price of money. But because there's more money in the system, there's more money fighting for the same amount of assets. So relatively, there's less assets compared to money. So assets go up because of higher demand. This is what happened in lockdown. $1 trillion got dumped into the system, nearly $1 trillion. And it really shocked a lot of people, including me at first. Real estate went like that. Watches went like that. The stock, everything went up like that. They went like, how the fuck could this happen with the like lockdown and the economy like it is? It was simple because they pumped so much more money in. And less was being made and created. There were less property transactions. Their watches and cars weren't being built. So you had major oversupply of money, major undersupply of assets. So assets go hard up, money goes hard down. So I own assets and I own debt. Because when money goes hard down, so does the value of the debt linked to money. So the government know that if they print a lot of money, they eradicate relatively their own debt because the value of the debt goes down. So I have mortgages against assets. So anytime inflation kicks in, my assets are pushed up, but the mortgage against them is pushed down.
So does that mean it's a bad idea to pay off all of your, quote, good debts like mortgages on your properties?
Well, we've got to differentiate between good debt and bad debt. That's really important. If you're getting loans for depreciating cars and because you're spending £500 more than you're earning and you're going out and you're buying iPhones and hardware and clothing and depreciating liabilities, that is just dumb. The only reason you should ever get debt is if the return on the debt is higher than the cost of the debt. So often, you want to get rid of your debt, bad debt, to zero before you invest. However, for many years, debt was very low. So when interest rates are low, you can beat the interest rate with the earning from the asset. So you use the debt to leverage an asset. Now, I know how to beat inflation, leveraging debt against assets. I'll usually do it in real estate, sometimes in companies. So if I pay off my debt, I'm using fiat currency, which is going down in value, which I've paid tax on to pay down debt. But if I just leave the debt the same, 100 grand, in 25 years, 100 grand might have halved and halved again. Like, think about what you could buy with 100 grand 25 years ago. You could buy a big house. Now you can buy a studio in a shit area. So fast forward 25 years, that 100 grand is going to go down similarly and relatively. So I want to maximize my good debt as long as I'm not exposed to fluctuations in markets, and as long as there's good income to cover the payment of the debt. And then I want to let inflation and the government pay that debt down for me. So inflation was double digit in 2020, 2021. And by the way, if they say to you it's 7, it's probably 12 or 14. They don't put everything into the basket of goods. They probably don't include your mortgage, which has gone up 3 times. So in reality, whatever they say inflation is, double it. So if it was 10 in 2020, it's 20. So not only did my asset prices go up probably 10% in that year, but if inflation in real terms was, say, 15, that's what they paid my mortgage down relatively. So in 1 year, my debt went down relatively 15. My asset went up relatively 10. So on tens of millions of real estate, I've done 25% net in a year, thanks to the government and central banks.
So you just need to know that game. So
this is why I teach people this stuff. This is what Rob.team is for, to awaken people. If people learn all this and they decide they want a job and they decide that paying taxes is a good public service and we need to look after the police and the nurses and they're happy to pay 70% of their taxes and yada, 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 as long as you know how the system works, then cool.
What do you think the riskiest investment category is?
Usually something that is very new and unproven, that early adopters are pumping who have an ulterior motive to pump it. Usually. So if they're getting a commission or they're earning money on pumping it, or they're in the asset and they've got a big influence and so them pumping it pushes the value of their money up. If an IFA is recommending an investment to you and they get a commission on it, these are the most dangerous apparent investments. And the opposite of that is no ulterior motive, proven over hundreds or thousands of years. Now, AI could be the next $1 trillion industry, but there will be many AI companies that will fail and some that will succeed. Crypto, we've seen Bitcoin looks pretty good, but we've also seen FTX, which wasn't a crypto, but of course they made out that it was just a platform. And we've seen all these shit coins and altcoins go to zero. So crypto in and of itself can be bad or good. AI in and of itself can be bad or good. Any asset class in and of itself can be bad or good. Do you know people make a lot of money owning classic cars? But people lose a lot of money owning classic cars. Billionaires make a lot of money in art. A lot of people lose money in art. So it's not really about the class, it's about the knowledge of the class. What you want is legalized insider trading. You want to know so much about a class that it's like insider trading, but it's legal. That's how you make money in an asset class.
Here's something that keeps coming up every time I'm researching money in business. And you've done a lot of joint ventures over the 18 years. And something people keep being really scared of is what happens when a business relationship breaks down, because that can be very costly. There can be legal issues. How do you navigate that, or how do you prevent it from happening?
You prevent it from happening by, one, picking the right person or partner. That might be longevity, reliability, a desire to, or proven track record of not running away from problems, cares about the customer or the end user. There's some other criteria, and you might have your own individual criteria, but number one, you pick the right partner. Number two, you strike the right deal. So that's the commercials and the legals. The commercials are, what's the financial split? And how does the money get paid and what's the flow? and what are the technical elements of the commercial deal. Then there's the legals. Who takes the money? What happens if there's a dispute? Who owns the IP? All of that. Then you've got to create the contract and get that contract signed and agreed and committed to. Then you've both got to deliver your side. Now, ideally, if you do completely different things. So if I'm the promoter and you're the speaker, that's a good joint venture because you can fulfill the people in the room and I can put the people in the room. Whereas if I'm part speaker, part promoter, and you're part speaker, part promoter, there's blurred lines there. And you're going to go, oh, you didn't fill the room. And I'm going to go, well, you didn't. And then we're going to both want to speak. So that's not going to work. So you want to make sure you're both performing very different but complementary tasks or projects within the partnership. Then you need to execute, i.e. you need to do it well. Because the thing with partnerships is sometimes they break down just because one partnership isn't really performing anymore. And sometimes people talk about loyalty, but you can't be loyal to not making money because you are a business. So if you fall down on your side and you don't step up, that can end the relationship. Then the next thing is continual evolution, especially when it comes to communication. So I've had dozens of partnerships, many that have lasted 10 years plus, one that's lasted the whole time, 18 years. You know, my MD, it's her 14th anniversary being in the business this year. And, you know, the person who sits next to her today is nearly 15-year anniversary. So I've got long-term partnerships, but I have some that last a year or two or three and then exit. And they usually exit because of misaligned expectations, i.e. they thought they'd be making more money, or they thought you should be doing more, or they're not happy about A, B, and C. And that's usually down to ineffective communication. So depending on how important the partner is, you want to make sure you spend the related amount of time with them to communicate well and clearly. And then conflict resolution would be probably the final one, which is when there is conflict, face it, try and deal with it, try and handle it without lawyers, try and handle it respectfully. It's really important to make sure you note down and track any changes or commitments or agreements. A lot of people just do it verbally and then it gets lost, and then if it's not written down, it doesn't exist. I know that you can have spoken things that can become a contract in law, but if it's not written down, it's open to interpretation. If it's written down in black and white and confirmed, it's not open to interpretation. So conflict resolution, what are we on, step 5 or 6 here? And then if you have to exit, how can you exit cleanly? Ideally, you're not in debt with obligations to fulfill, because if you've got obligations to fulfill, one or both the partnerships just going to want to balk and run because they don't want to have this financial liability. So manage your finances well through the partnership. Make sure you've got a bit of capital cash flow. So when it ends, you can still fulfill afterwards if you need to. Try and amicably break. And then if it gets messy, you've got to get the lawyers in. And ideally, you don't want to do that. But stage 1 of getting the lawyers in is trying to come to a deal with the lawyers without going to court. Horse trade and, use the lawyers to calm down the communication and just like trade. And then final is go to court.
Finally, what is the biggest financial risk of them all?
If you don't risk anything, you risk everything. The biggest financial risk is to take no financial risk. The biggest financial risk is to get a supposedly secure job. Jobs are one of the least secure ways to make money because you're not in control of your outcome. Someone tomorrow could say you're surplus to requirements. So investing is a risk. But the only way you make money by investing is taking the risk to invest. So saving is a risk. So you might as well invest if saving is a risk. But the biggest financial mistake is to never take a risk and always play it safe.
Thanks.
Now, I've been on a mission for 17 years to help as many people on this planet get better financial knowledge. If, like me, you'd like to make, manage, and multiply more money, I recommend that you join my digital financial freedom platform. It's really easy to join. You just type in rob.team. There you're going to learn my 4 M's of making, managing, maintaining and multiplying more money. And the even better news is there's no risk to you because it costs less than 20 pence a day to join. You can cancel anytime. Join right now. I'll also give you my 12-week Money Mastermind University completely for free. It exposes the banking system and teaches you how to play them at their own game. If you join rob.team right now, you get that completely for free. Just type in rob.team. We'll see you inside with the 10,000 other members in rob.team.